The thrilling story begins with a news reporter named Daniel, who is there to interview a man who claims to be a vampire. This vampire, named Lewis, tells Daniel that he has been alive for the past 200 years and wants to share his story with others. Daniel starts asking him a lot of questions but is skeptical because he has only read about vampires in stories. Daniel even says that he doesn't believe Lewis is a vampire because vampires are supposed to die in sunlight. Lewis then asks Daniel to turn on the lights. As Daniel goes to do so, Lewis suddenly appears at high speed, even though he was standing quite far away moments before. Daniel is shocked and asks how Lewis could move so fast. Lewis explains that he is not an ordinary human but a vampire with many powers. This starts to convince Daniel, and he begins to listen to Lewis's story. Lewis talks about his past, 200 years ago, when he was very young and just a normal human. He had developed a heavy drinking habit and was always intoxicated because his wife was pregnant and they were very poor. Due to their lack of money, both his wife and child died, which plunged him into depression. He drank excessively and engaged in gambling. One day, he was in a gambling house playing cards. He bet his entire house and property in the game, but fortunately, he won. His opponent was astonished by the quality of Lewis's cards and suspected cheating. He pointed a gun at Lewis and demanded that he leave. It turns out that an unknown man had been watching Lewis. When Lewis, in his drunken state, went outside, he was attacked by another man who asked him about the money he had. "Hand me over," but just then, another man came from behind and pushed the attacker away, saving Lewis's life. This man was named Lestat, who was also a vampire. Lestat grabbed Lewis and began to take him with him. For some unknown reason, Lestat started to bite Lewis severely, but Lewis simply believed that if Lestat wanted to kill him, he should go ahead because he didn't want to live anymore. He had nothing left. However, Lestat paused for a while and took Lewis to his home. When Lewis regained consciousness a little later, Lestat asked him some questions. He said, "I'm giving you two options, either I can kill you, or I can make you like me and grant you immortality. That means no one will be able to kill you, and you will live for thousands of years. Your youth will never end." Lewis pondered this deeply and came to a conclusion. Since he had no one left in this world, he decided that it would be better to become a vampire and live for many hundreds of years. He accepted the second offer, and as a result, Lestat began to bite him. Lestat also fed Lewis his own blood to convert him into a vampire. After drinking the blood, Lewis fully recovered and was no longer a human but had become a vampire. All his human traits were replaced by those of a vampire. He could neither be killed nor die. Lestat had fully converted Lewis into a vampire, making him just like himself. He also explained that vampires should stay away from light because it is their weakness, and Lewis would have to follow these rules. Lestat told Lewis that during the day, they sleep in coffins and only come out at night for hunting. Their main prey was humans, whose blood made them strong. When Lewis learned this, he was completely shocked, and all his decisions began to turn into guilt because after becoming a vampire, he would have to kill humans and drink their blood. He didn't want to harm any human, but it had become his compulsion. If he didn't drink the blood, he wouldn't be able to survive. Consequently, Lestat took Lewis to a party where many guests were present. At the party, Lewis saw a lady accompanied by two dogs. He began to talk to her, and they both ended up outside. Lewis then felt an urge to drink the lady's blood, and as he was about to attack her, he remembered that he couldn't do that and that it was wrong. Instead, he let the lady go and began drinking the blood of her two dogs. Seeing this, the lady screamed loudly, attracting everyone's attention. Just in time, Lestat arrived and killed the lady. Lewis was extremely angry about this and tried to attack Lestat. Lestat tried to explain that he was also a vampire and that Lewis couldn't kill him. Lewis was confused about what he was doing with his life. He had never intended to be forced into killing people in this way. As a result, Lewis became so enraged that he stopped drinking human blood and survived only by drinking the blood of normal birds and animals. This caused his strength to significantly decrease, and he continued to weaken. Lewis and Lestat had many slaves who did a lot of work for them. However, these slaves discovered many dead bodies in the water, which made them very angry. They felt that their masters were deceiving them, so they gathered torches and went straight to the palace where Lestat and Lewis lived. Lewis, who was feeling very weak, was thinking about how to overcome his weakness. There was a maid who worked for them, and Lewis began to drink her blood because he needed strength. The maid immediately fainted and was on the verge of death. The slaves stood outside the palace, and Lewis brought the maid's dead body to them. Lewis told them that they were all free now and that their master was deceiving people. And by taking their lives, he becomes more powerful, so you should not be enslaved by such people. Louis handed over the maid's dead body to them and set fire to everything because he didn't want people's lives to be consumed by the flames. Louis himself began to burn in the fire and accepted his end. However, at that moment, Lestat arrived and saved Louis, taking him to a safe place. Although Lestat did this for his own benefit, he still wanted to save Louis. Louis, who could not die and was immortal, had completely stopped drinking human blood. He only survived by drinking the blood of rats and small animals found in the streets. Now, due to a widespread illness in the city, people were falling sick everywhere. Louis, traveling continuously, entered a house and heard a girl crying. Inside, he saw a young girl named Claudia weeping over her mother's body, who had died due to the illness. Louis could not bear to see the crying girl and embraced her. The girl was very sad and clung to him, but soon, Claudia, the girl, lost consciousness and was on the verge of dying. At that moment, Lestat arrived and told Louis, "Where are your rules? You said you would not kill any humans, and now a little girl is about to die because of you." Louis could not tolerate this and, once he regained his senses, realized that he had made a terrible mistake. He completely lost control, fled from there, and lived in the sewers, surviving on the blood of rats. The next day, Lestat visited Louis and took him to his home to show him something. Lestat revealed that the girl Louis had bitten was still alive, but she might not survive much longer because of the blood Louis had taken. Louis felt very guilty. Lestat then explains that if he gives her his blood and converts her into a vampire, she might be saved. Although Louis does not want to do this at all, Lestat insists that if he doesn't, the girl will die because of him. Louis, feeling deeply troubled by these events, reluctantly agrees. Lestat then feeds his vampire blood to the girl, Claudia, to save her life. Claudia is thus transformed into a vampire, and Lestat tells her, "You are now part of our family, and you will stay with us." Time passes, and Claudia, Louis, and Lestat remain unchanged, as their age does not increase due to their vampire nature. Claudia had come to view Louis and Lestat as her family and slept in Louis's coffin. However, Lestat wanted Claudia to help with his mission. Over the course of 30 years, Claudia and Louis's appearance and behavior remain unchanged, while Claudia begins to feel a desire to be free and enjoy life like other children. Despite Lestat and Louis's explanations that she cannot do so, Claudia grows increasingly frustrated. Eventually, Claudia decides to cut her hair short, but to everyone's shock, her hair immediately begins to regrow. In a fit of anger, Claudia even attacks Lestat with a knife, causing him to bleed. However, within seconds, Lestat's wounds heal on their own. Claudia becomes more curious about the secret behind this and presses Lestat for answers. Lestat refuses to explain and instead insists that she come inside to avoid any more disruptions. Louis then explains to Claudia that many years ago, he had bitten her by mistake, leaving her in a state of near death. Lestat had saved her by giving her his blood, transforming her into a vampire, just like them, and she is now immortal. Claudia is enraged and expresses her hatred for both Lestat and Louis. Eventually, Claudia, feeling responsible for her situation, begins to cry profusely. After some time, Claudia returns to the house where she had initially found comfort. Claudia, with great affection, suggests to Louis that they should leave and find a place where they can be safe. However, Claudia's insistence on leaving angers Louis, who believes that Claudia will not allow them to go. In her frustration, Claudia goes directly to Lestat and tells him that they should gather their things and move forward to start a new life. To demonstrate her commitment, Claudia presents Lestat with a gift, 2 twin children. She says that this is her first hunt, and she wants to dedicate her first kill to Lestat. Pleased with this gesture, Lestat immediately begins drinking the blood of the children. However, as Lestat drinks the blood, he starts to feel weak instead of gaining strength. He realizes that Claudia's blood makes him weaker, not stronger. Claudia, now feeling even more empowered, decides to dispose of the bodies by throwing them into a lake, where crocodiles begin to eat them. With confirmation of their deaths, Claudia and Lestat leave the area. Meanwhile, Louis and Claudia plan to head to Europe to find a vampire community where they can survive and expand their own community. As they prepare to leave for their journey, they discover that they are attacked by none other than Lestat. Despite appearing to be dead, Lestat has survived and is in a very poor condition with a completely damaged body structure. He explains that he survived by drinking the blood of the crocodiles in the lake where Claudia had thrown him. Louis now attacks Claudia directly because she was the one who had orchestrated all these events. In his anger, he throws a burning torch at Lestat, setting him on fire. The fire quickly spreads to all the houses around, causing widespread destruction. With Lestat believed to be dead, Louis and Claudia set off for Europe, leaving behind the ruins. They embark on a long journey, thinking that Lestat is destroyed. In Europe, Louis and Claudia settle down and begin to live their lives without any major problems. One night, Louis encounters two vampires named San Diego and Armand. Armand gives Louis an invitation to a playhouse where all vampires gather. After attending the play, Louis meets Armand, who starts discussing their existence with him. Louis asks Armand about their powers, their origin, and the purpose of their abilities. Although Armand does not have all the answers, he reveals that he has been alive for 400 years and has never seen any demon or deity. This immortality, he explains, is a curse that keeps them alive, but the true nature of this curse remains unclear to Louis. As Louis reflects on these revelations, he starts to question whether he made a mistake by killing Lestat. He realizes that although Lestat was not a good person, he was not entirely evil either. Meanwhile, San Diego, who is the oldest among them, begins to engage in the conversation. San Diego, having read Louis's mind, notices that Louis and Claudia might have killed Lestat together. San Diego wants to question them about it, but before he can, Claudia and Louis arrive at their luxurious home. Claudia informs Louis that she noticed Armand and that he is someone who belongs to their community and that Louis should stay with him. Louis immediately goes to Armand and asks him about the situation. Armand reveals that converting someone into a vampire at such a young age was illegal and that the community would eventually kill them. He also tells Louis that Lestat, who created them, has been killed by his own creation. Louis realizes that Claudia and the others are in danger because they are in a place where the sunlight will eventually reach them. Determined to save Claudia, Louis gives his blood to a lady who is about to die so she can become a vampire and help them. They are now all in the same luxurious house, but soon, the entire vampire community arrives and captures them. The vampires confirm that Louis and Claudia are indeed the ones responsible for Lestat's death. The captured trio is taken to a place where they are exposed to sunlight, which will ultimately lead to their demise. The sunlight starts to pour in, directly affecting their bodies and putting them in immediate danger. Due to becoming a vampire, Claudia goes straight to open the coffin where Louis had been locked up. Armand helps Louis escape and they head directly towards Claudia. Louis then realizes that the lady and Claudia are starting to awaken. With Armand's help, Louis arrives at the place where all the vampire community members were sleeping. He immediately sets the coffins on fire, burning them all. Armand assists in their escape, and they manage to get away. Although Louis has eliminated all the members of his vampire community, his anger is still not subdued. Armand suggests they should stay together, but Louis refuses, knowing that Armand was aware of everything from the start. If Armand had wanted to, he could have warned Claudia. Angered, Louis parts ways with Armand and chooses to live alone. 10 years later, Louis is living a normal life. He eventually returns to the house where he had lived with Lestat and Claudia. Seeing Louis, Lestat becomes frightened as Louis is much more powerful and could easily kill him. However, Louis explains to Lestat that both of them made mistakes and deserved the punishments they received. Lestat, crying deeply, suggests that they should always be together, but Louis refuses and leaves, as Lestat's punishment is to live alone for the rest of his life. The scene shifts to the present day, where Louis is giving an interview to a reporter named Daniel. Shocked by the entire story, Daniel is told by Louis to either share it with the public or write a book about it. Louis wants people to understand that a long life or immortal existence is not a blessing but a curse that can never be escaped. But now Daniel was extremely excited and wanted to be turned into a vampire himself. He begged Louis to convert him by biting him. Louis, angry, told Daniel that he did not understand his words at all. Becoming a vampire and being immortal is a curse, not a blessing, and it is something no one should wish for. Louis then killed Daniel and disappeared, leaving Daniel terrified. He got into his car with all the reports and tried to drive away. However, suddenly, someone from behind the car seat pulled him back. It was none other than Lestat, who had somewhat recovered. Lestat immediately bit into Daniel's neck, drinking his blood and restoring his normalcy. Daniel was in a critical condition, and Lestat presented him with two options, just as he had done years ago with Louis: either suffer and die in agony or have Lestat turn him into a vampire by drinking his blood. Daniel, too weak to respond, did not give an answer, so Lestat, laughing, took Daniel with him and proceeded. And so, our story ends here.